Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got a brand new show for you today at the South Point Arena on July 21st, 2019. Two shows at 1 and 5. It's called Gladius and it's starring Erik and Lisa, who join us on the phone now live from Las Vegas. How are you doing, guys?
Doing good. How are you?
It's really lovely to talk to you both. I got to meet Lisa in May and I was fascinated by your life and your careers because the two are intertwined. This is 24/7. This is 7 days a week. This isn't a hobby, is it?
No, it's more like a lifestyle.
And you love it. I mean, the backbone of this show is the horses, and this is really a dangerous thing because these are live animals that can do what they want when they want to do it, and you've got to turn it into a show and make it look exciting. Explain the concept to us.
The concept of the show, the easiest explanation is take Cirque du Soleil, mix in a bunch of gladiators, and throw in a bunch of horses. That's kind of the easiest explanation. We do all the aerial and acrobatic stuff you would see in a Cirque du Soleil show. We just do a lot of it on top of horses while they're running around doing their own cool things. So,
give me the statistics, if you will. How many people are in the show? How many animals are in the show?
We've got 15 performers, 18 horses, 5-ish tech crew, and then a whole host of backstage hands and grooms and helpers.
It varies a little bit from show to show, but yeah, that's the...
I remember saying to you at that wonderful party we were at in the summer, how do you get a horse to perform when it doesn't? And the answer is you don't. If they don't want to do it, they don't do it.
No.
2,000 pounds of animal kind of does what it wants to.
It's kind of like us, like not all people are performers. It's the same with horses. Like we have gone through some horses that doesn't like to perform and they don't want to do it. So then you give them another job.
It's interesting you're doing this at South Point because it's so synonymous with horses in the beginning. I mean, they do a ton of trials there and exhibitions and things like that. So it's the perfect synergy, really. And of course, you can't just stick this in a little showroom in Bally's. It's got to be a facility that can handle the size of these animals because they are enormous, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we can't do... I mean, the one really hard part with the show is we can't go, hey, there's a cool little room somewhere we can go and adapt it to that room because we literally need an absolute minimum of 100 by 200 just in space, just feet, obviously, just in floor space, and then obviously the seating has to come around that. So
not just that, we also need stalling and places to put horses.
The logistics supporting it, it's not like a magic show where you can stick the props in a back room and let them sit there over the week and then come back and do the show on the weekend. So all the supporting facilities and all that also.
And I guess you love this because this is a life. This isn't a job. I mean, they want feeding after the show. It's not like you can go home and put your feet up and go to the pub. It's never going to stop, is it? It's relentless.
Yep.
Yes. I mean, they're our children. Like, we don't have kids for a reason. Our horses are our kids.
As we can see from these pictures, you're both delicious in different ways. This is not only a show of horses, it's a show of sort of physical strength too. I mean, you clearly both work out. What's your day like? You wake up in the morning, eat protein, go to the gym for 6 hours, look after horses for 6 hours and repeat?
Yeah, kind of.
Add in a bunch of the creative side of it, all coming up with different stuff and working on acts. And I do all the fabrication for all our props too, so add in that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Protein pancakes in the morning and go from there.
I don't know if it's the same morning because summertime, our morning starts right now and it's 2 p.m. So right. we train until 6 in the morning because it's too hot during the day, and then we go to bed around 7, and then you don't want to wake up in the morning. So
I'm surprised there isn't a horse show already in Vegas because we love to see them, and also the gladiatorial stuff. I mean, we love that too. This was born to be produced in Las Vegas. I'm amazed somebody else hasn't done it before.
Yeah.
Well, that was when I originally started with the concept, and it started out as just gladiator. I didn't really have evolved a lot over the years, but the original concept was to build a show that we could put in Caesar's Palace. So it definitely, it's just from concept, it was a Vegas show.
We spend a lot of time with our horses, and yeah, you feel out their personalities over years of training. I mean, you realize pretty quickly what they're meant to do, like what they like to do.
And that even changes over time too, as we have a young horse that's a little too hot for a certain piece, and he'll be doing one thing, and then as he matures and gets older, that might be something that he's not as good at anymore, but so he'll transition into a different part of the show. So they really sorry. So it's really fluid as far as what they do, and as we work with them, we kind of play with everything and just see what direction they like to go and kind of follow their lead.
And how many times do you have to rehearse each bit before they're comfortable with it? Because not only are they doing tricks, there's also pyro, there's also lighting, there's bangs, there's you on top of them, you in costumes. There's a lot of stuff for them to understand that they're not necessarily going to.
Right. That depends like crazy. Some horses, for some parts, take a long time to get used to certain things. Others, something else they've done in life has already kind of got them, so they're not worried about it. We have one horse that we use for all the fire stuff, and the first time I tried to introduce him to fire, I lit a little fire thing and kind of stood a little ways away, and as I walked closer to see how he would react to it, he walked at me and tried to take a bite out of it, and I had to move it real quick so he didn't burn himself. And so he obviously just never had any issue with fire whatsoever. It wasn't something. So you have that end of it, and then some of the high school riding stuff, the Grand Prix level tricks, just take years and years and years and years of training. So you get horses that, doing other pieces in the show, and they're just working on the training part for some of that. And eventually they get to the point where they can do a part that, it took years of training to get to.
Lisa, tell me about your life and whether you want to be an animal lover or whether you want to be a star, because putting the two together is odd, but it's perfect for you. Not only are you gorgeous and delicious, but of course you've got a big heart for animals. So I suppose this show's perfect. What are you most? Are you wanting to be in show business or look after the animals?
I guess it's 50-50 on that one. Like I grew up competing in vaulting. That's equestrian acrobatics, and in the competitions, I was always more of a performer than a competitor, because I always think outside the box and try new things and just not exactly what the judges were looking for. So when Erik introduced me to the performing side of it, I just fell in love with it and just lost the interest of competing. And then I've never owned a horse until I moved to Vegas. I've never owned my own horse. I've literally only had a pet rabbit when I was a kid. So going from having no animals of my own to having that, now I have 18 horses and a couple of dogs and some cats. It's awesome. Like I'm literally living my dream, because I get to have all these animals and I get to do what I love to do since I was a kid. So
how incredible.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, amazing. And Erik, tell me about your life and how you're looking like that for a start. I mean, I guess a big part of your day is staying fit, because you're an incredibly built guy, as people will see in this show.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I was a day off from being born on a horse, literally. So I grew up with the whole horse thing. I started vaulting when I was 6. I had already tried standing on horses, running through fields at like 5. Got into the competitive side. I started training really hard at about 14 years old. I was doing gymnastics for 3 hours a day, dance classes a couple hours a day, vaulting hours a day, riding hours a day.
Ballet too.
Yep, ballet.
I'd pay to see that.
I'm really graceful, I promise. And then all the time in the gym. At that point, I think I was training 8 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I grew up with it. That's what I know. That's what I'm good at. I took to mechanical stuff really easily, so I've got a degree in blacksmithing, so I do a lot of fabrication and all of that side of it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at sitting around doing nothing, so it works well for me. And cubicles and me don't get along.
Me too. And in terms of the show, I mean, people who put on a show in Vegas often spend about 1 to 3 months loading in and getting it right and all of that. You've got about 1 to 3 hours. How do you literally put it on in a day? It's an extraordinary feat of show business.
Well, we have everything set up. We literally have the whole show set up in the backyard right now. We've got a big arena with aerial rigs and bleachers and the whole thing back here. So we're able to set up and actually train it at home on site, and then we literally just break this down, and it's all kind of set up because we knew it was going to be a touring show for at least a while. Everything is set up to transport really easily. So everything breaks down, we load it into the trailer, we drive down, we unload it. It's about a half a day probably from when we pull into South Point till we would be able to, till we were able to run a full rehearsal anyway.
Just incredible. And the cast, I mean, they must be excited to be part of this, because there's nothing quite like it. And you're using people from all over Vegas, from different parts of show business too.
We actually have one guy coming from London tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, we actually hired him. he friended Erik on Instagram, and he's the same kind of performer, but in the UK, and he's amazing. And then they connected really well on Instagram, and then they were just jokingly saying like, yeah, maybe I should bring you over for a show one day. And he was super excited about it, and we ended up doing that last summer when we had a show in California for 10 days, and we flew him in, and he was just awesome, and he clicked with the crew really well and with the horses, and he just took to things super easy. So we decided to bring him back for this show, and so he's flying in on Monday, and then he's flying out Monday, like the day after the show.
Wow.
For another gig. So we're using people from all over the place, and we hired a couple of new girls here locally, so we can actually have some of the crew here prior to the week of the show. Jesus,
I can't even get an internet date on Tinder. You're flying people in from around the world. This is remarkable.
When you're done with this, I'll give you some tips.
Would you? Yeah, I need your help. Maybe if I look like you and got a sword in my hand, it might help. Tell me about the excitement of doing the show, because, of course, you've got to be on your toes and you've got to be able to ad-lib, because it might not necessarily go the way you rehearse it. I guess that's a big skill, isn't it? Making it look like it's the show, even if it's not.
Well, the thing, and actually for me, one of the funnest parts is working with a live show, and you add live animals into it. It's even more so, is that a huge part of it is being able to adapt and do it instantly, and that's just a big part of it, because the horses aren't machines. They're gonna be a little different every single time. A performer gets nervous or stubs their toe or trips, or any number of small things can change something to where you can adapt to it, and no problem, you rock and roll. The audience has no idea that something's not exactly how it was supposed to be. But if you don't adapt immediately, it turns into a big disaster. And that, for me, that's one of the funnest parts. That's why I like doing live stuff so much more than film work, because on film it screws up, they just retake it. In live, you don't get that. You have to make it work regardless of what's happening.
Yes.
And that's a really cool challenge, and really it's just fun. Nothing gets boring that way.
Yeah, like if some audience member is wearing a super green shirt and their horse sees that and is super scared of green, apparently, then you got to deal with that. It's just fun to be able to like read the animals like that, because suddenly they see something that you have no idea that. Oh, I didn't know that reacted to that. Can they even see colors?
It's amazing. And for those who are worried about the horses taking part in it, I know they're better fed than you and better looked after than each of you. You certainly give them more rest than you get. I mean, these are your babies, and you would never put them in any sort of danger, and if they didn't want to do it, they don't do the show. It's as simple as that. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, they don't even do acts that they don't particularly like, so they're all doing stuff that they're comfortable with and that they like to do. For people that don't believe that or don't see it, if you ever watch us walk into the pen, the horses surround us. They come up to us. And when we retire a horse, which is, they get to a point where they need to be retired because they're getting older, and you can see it. We'll still go into the pen to get somebody else, and they'll come up and try to put their head in the bridle because they want to work.
Oh,
yeah, it's like they're like us. Like if I don't go to the gym and like. If I take 3 days off the gym, I'm getting antsy and I'm getting cranky and I need to go do something. And the horses are the same way. They if you let them sit in a pasture or in the pen for too long, they come up and they're pawing at the fence like, hey, come get me. Like I'm bored.
I wish I could see this. July 21st, 2019 at 1 and 5 at South Point Arena. You can see Gladius. This is a remarkable show. I love the fact you put so much effort and time. This isn't just a one-day, two-show production. This is a lifetime's production. And Vegas, in my opinion, gets a bit lazy sometimes. But this is the benchmark. This is what Vegas should be doing, pushing forward, creating new stuff and bringing it to mass audiences. So I congratulate you on that. Pictures look stunning too. So thank you so much for your time. It's really lovely talking to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Gladius will be appearing July 21st at the South Point Arena. Guys, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.